Being isolated was one thing. Being hunted, quite another.
You didn't see me here.
The marsh girl. She killed him.
I know you have a world of reasons to hate these people.
No, I never hated them. They hated me. They harassed me.
No, they never did see me here.
You want me to beg for my life? I won't. They're not deciding anything about me.
I saw it a couple of days ago, and I'd read the book previously, so I kind of had an idea of where it was going, but I still found watching Kaya go on that journey was still quite an emotional experience. Had you read the book before you started this thing?
So I read it when I was auditioning for the part.
Okay.
So yeah, so I read it really sort of imagining what it would feel like to try and bring her to life.
Right.
Yeah.
And in terms of the script, how much of that did you see reflecting what, because there were some changes obviously from the book, just little things, but did you find it took her in a different maybe direction than you'd experienced in the book, or how is it marrying up those two things, I guess is my question.
I've been a big fan of Lucy Alabar, who was our screenwriter, and she wrote a film called Beast of the Southern Wild that I'd seen years ago, and I was just such a huge fan of hers. So I was so excited to see how she would bring the book to life, and I think she really captured the tone of the book so well, and it's a very faithful adaptation, I think. You know, like you said, it's always going to be a wee bit different because you're getting a different angle on the character. You're not in their head so much, you're watching them. But I think what's really cool is that Lucy really allowed for so many moments of quiet and silence, which allows an audience to kind of imbue the character with the sort of their internal life, which is really cool. But yeah, I really do think it is really faithful, and I think you capture the tone of the story really well. And I hope that viewers will leave the film with the same feeling they had when they finished the book. You know?
Right. One of the things I think that the book and the film do so well is not make any kind of prejudgments on not only Kaya as a character, but also, you know, the twist, the reveal of what has happened. For you, do you go into this character kind of aware of the outcome, or are you playing every scene in the moment as it happens?
I think in the moment as it happens, yeah. I think you know, and also because you film out of order as well, you do kind of just have to really think, you know, try and put yourself in that moment, you know, for sure.
There was the scene where you, one of the confrontations with Chase, and the film feels, even though she's very in touch with nature and herself, that is this moment of kind of wildness that comes out of her. And for me, that was like my favorite part in the film. I was like, yes, go guy. For you, how did you kind of play into that in that moment? How emotional was that for you as an actress?
Yeah, well, I think you're right. That is a moment of wildness that comes out, and you know, I think what I like about Kaya is she's a multitude of things. Like she is both wild and strong and very resilient, but she's also very gentle and very curious, and she's complicated and she's nuanced. And I think that was something I really like. I always love in a character, and I think, you know, it's important to have female characters who are complicated and you know, and real. So but I was really lucky because Harris, who plays Chase, is lovely. So it was, you know, it was a really collaborative experience to sort of do that scene, and a real chance to kind of to really show Kaya standing up for herself, which I think is really important.
How is it playing with him? Obviously, you've got this kind of it's an interesting relationship between those two characters, and there's moments of vulnerability for him as well, and you get the sense that actually he is seeking something in her that he doesn't get in his life. How did you work on that outside of when you were filming? What was that dynamic like for you?
Yeah, so we got to have some rehearsals, which was really good. But I think it's always, you know, fun to come to the scene and just be really present and reactive to what each other is giving each other, if that makes sense. You know, you can come with an idea of how you want to play something, but if you're too solid in that, you won't be free to take what you're given on that day on that set. So and also Harris is from a similar area in London to me, that we were both doing the accents. That was quite fun for us both.
I was gonna say your accent is great. I thought you did a great job as an American. I was like, oh, here we go. But what was that process like for you? Obviously, you know, does that help you kind of step into the shoes of this character doing that accent work?
Definitely. I think accent informs so much more than just the vocal aspect. It really also informs a physicality and a characterization. And I found with that accent in particular, there's a real sort of gentle quality to it and a musical quality to it that I think really informed a lot about, you know, Kaya's sort of character, because she's very gentle and so I loved trying to get that accent right.
Obviously, it's such a. I don't know where you guys filmed it, but the scenery is just stunning.
Yeah.
How much did you allow the environment to affect the way that you portrayed that character? Because it is so important to her, right?
It is.
The marsh.
You know, and it's such a great backdrop too, because there's, you know, it's a very dangerous environment at times. And I think, you know, the mystery and the sort of murder mystery aspect of the story, it's sort of that backdrop it makes it all the more tense, I think. But, you know, for Kaya, she has to survive in this wild landscape, and nature is, you know, nature isn't always very you know, there's no judgment in nature, but it's, you know, it's also very powerful and all-encompassing. And I think being there was really cool. And we filmed in the outskirts of New Orleans and Louisiana, and in the bayou, and, you know, there was like alligators and like snake wranglers wrangling snakes, and it was, you know, very, very different from London, but really cool, and really helped to get into that character really. And you couldn't ignore the power of nature, because there would be like thunder and lightning storms that would mean we had to stop filming and all go sit in our cars as the thunder rumbled overhead. So yeah, it was an amazing place to film.
How much did you bring elements of your own kind of womanhood and development into this character?
Yeah, well, I think Kaya's a character who's finding herself and finding her feet, and I think that's perhaps that is just part of being in your 20s, is finding out who you are and the people that matter to you, and that fundamentally sort of affect your life for the better. And I think that's something about the story that I love, is there's this profound romance and love story between Kaya and one of the characters, and you know, him teaching her to read ultimately changes her life for the better, because she's able to, you know, learn about the marsh that she loves so much and record it and learn, and, you know, and teach others about it, and so yeah, I love that aspect of it. And so yeah, I guess I related to that being you know, growing up, I guess.
That like searching and finding it. And it's also quite interesting because she is such a solitary person. She grew up most of her life by herself, really, with nature. And so it's interesting to see how she relates then to other people. And there is that element where you see you in the marsh being like this frightened, almost animal instinct that drives her. Was that harder to tap into, or do you just jump in? I mean, because I imagine I would be very self-aware of that non-human quality almost to her.
Yeah, you do sort of just jump in really, and filmmaking is so collaborative. So that feeling is also helped by the choice of camera and the music underneath. So, you know, I love that aspect of filmmaking, because you know, the performance is only a small part of it, and so you play with it. But, you know, Polly choosing to put a camera above you so that you seem small and vulnerable, and an ominous soundtrack really helps to create that feeling. So yeah.
Is that something that you're interested in? Because you talk a lot, I mean, you talk more about that aspect of it than I think many other people I've interviewed. Is that, how aware are you of that with every kind of different project? Because obviously I imagine doing television is very different to doing this kind of thing. So
yeah, well, I love, you know, for me, this is my first sort of big studio cinema release, and being on the film set and seeing the scope of the project was so amazing. I'm you know, I'm used to having a camera be here and handheld, and that gives a very different feel, and seeing these amazing rigs and the camera almost flying through the film like a bird was really cool, just as a film nerd to be on set and be like, oh my god, look at this camera. So yeah, I love all that. I love filmmaking. So, you know, and I love filmmakers. So I think it's so fun to be on a set and see just the different ways people navigate a set, and also how they choose to piece it together, you know, a story.
For you, obviously you said you kind of filmed things out of sequence in the actual like working day of it. What did that throw up any difficulties for you in terms of where you were interacting with your own character at any given time?
Well, I've never really filmed anything sequentially, yeah, and because I've mostly done TV where you're filming like, you know, 6 episodes in 2 months, and you're switching between like, you know, so much. I'm sort of quite used to it now. So you just kind of take each scene and try and remember what's come before, and I do a lot of prep, you know, like on script work and stuff like that to help. But yeah,
in terms of the dynamic, obviously you've got Tate and Chase. How did you approach building those different relationships?
Well, that's always a really fun thing too, because we're so different with different people, you know. That's, you know, and I love that, placing a character with a different character and seeing how it's going to affect them. So obviously Lucy's script was so brilliant that, you know, you already had such an idea of that dynamic, but then it's really about just playing with that actor and seeing what they bring and seeing what it brings out in you. and really just like collaborating on it scene by scene.
Do you have something like a dream kind of role or character or project that you'd want to do now?
I think it would be really cool. I said this before, but it'd be really fun to play like a villain, like a real iconic villain of some
Right.
kind. Would be very fun.
Oh, iconic in terms of like comic booky iconic,
Well,
or
yeah,
just
comic booky, or just someone who
I feel like that's something everybody
yeah,
is like.
like a you know, like an American Psycho style, or like
Right.
comic booky, just someone who's like so fun and like villainous and yeah, that would be.
I guess you get to tap into a different part of
yeah,
yourself
yeah,
to do
that
that.
would be really fun.
Oh, very cool.